There are two parties that occurred in, let's say, medieval France that I think you should know about. The first occurred in the late 14th century and was called the Bal des Ardentes, and it was held to celebrate the king's mother's ladies-in-waiting marriage, but it ended in disaster. The king at the time was Charles VI, and he already showed signs of being insane after killing a few of his own people, but this one wasn't his fault, because tradition dictated, because the lady-in-waiting was getting remarried, that this was a time for jokes. So some dancers were hired and dressed like wild men. So wild men were an old folklore belief, and they were believed to represent demons, and occasionally effigies of them were burnt in rural villages. Anyway, at the party, the king's brother set fire to the dancers, albeit probably accidentally, but he was drunk. And some royals were dressed up as wild men as well, but they managed to escape. However, 4 men were killed, engulfed by flames, and according to one report, their penises fell off. When the people of Paris heard about this tragedy, they were angry with the king's brother for putting the king's life at risk. So to try and make amends, the king rode through the city on horseback while his brother walked next to him. He also agreed to help fund the building of a chapel, but this didn't help mend his reputation, and in later years he was accused of trying to kill the king, and also was accused of participating in witchcraft, essentially. Anyway, the second party I think you should know about occurred 50 years later in Lille, and it was organised by Philip the Good of Burgundy. It was called the Feast of Pheasants and occurred shortly after the fall of Constantinople. Philip intended to use this feast as a way to inspire people to launch a crusade against the Turks and reclaim Constantinople. Reports at the time indicate that the feast was very theatrical. One woman rode into the hall on an elephant. There was also a giant Saracen. Horses did tricks like ride backwards, and the musicians at the feast, over 20 of them, were put inside a giant pie and forced to play music from within the pie. However, despite all of this, a crusade obviously never materialized.